good morning, and good morning again. Happy Saturday to you. Let me just say welcome to those of you who are joining us by way of Facebook Live. We are just too delighted to welcome you once again to another one of our broadcasts on the Real Talk Life Issues Coaching Series. Yes, we want to also welcome those of you joining by way of YouTube. We certainly are thankful for your commitment throughout this calendar year. You have stuck right in there with us, and a huge thank you on this Saturday for your participation and support. Those of you that may be joining by way of phone as well, we certainly want to welcome you as well. I want to get right in because we have an intense 60 minutes for you today. And I'm saying to you, get ready, get your pens, get your paper. We want to give you some tools today to help you on this journey. Listen, for you, those of you that may be joining for the first time, or you might even have somebody who you say that they absolutely need to benefit from the broadcast today, I want to tell you how they can join us as well. You can have them join us on our Facebook Live. All they have to do is go to Facebook and type in Dr. K.O. Williams Ministry, or they can type the same thing into YouTube if they don't have Facebook, Dr. K.O. Williams Space Ministry, and you see the phone number. And then in the left-hand corner, we're coming rapidly to a close in this series around church hurt. Maybe there's something else in your immediate peripheral that you would like for us to bring some professional development and training around, some coaching around. So your voice matters. There it is in the bottom left. You can send us a question or comment or topic, bit.ly/Real Talk Your Voice. That will get you directly connected to us, and we'd be too delighted to take that and run with it. The sessions that you have seen have come from those persons really asking for these topics. Listen, 60 minutes on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. We talk about life's issues. We go straight, honest, transparent conversation. This is not for teenagers who are tender, but we're talking to grown folks, having some grown folks conversation. I always guarantee you that you'll get some practical tools to put in your toolbox. Boy, do I have some for you today. And again, anyone can participate. So let's get started today. I want to do something just a little bit different. I'm going to have a conversation with you. You know how we do. Sometimes we have PowerPoints for you to go back and give some additional research on. And then sometimes we just have a conversation. Well, today is one of those days we absolutely must have a conversation. We've been talking about this tough subject called church hurt. When you get hurt in the church. Listen, we told you in the beginning that this concept is practical, not only in the church, because maybe it's on your job that you've encountered some trauma and you're trying to figure out how do you get past it, or maybe it's in your community. You've been doing community work. I know so many community champions. And can I tell you something? When you raise your hand to do community work, you also need to understand that you're setting yourself in the path that there may come some offense. Yes, it's just a part of the business. And then maybe it's a family issue. Maybe you're having family conflict or challenges, and you're trying to wade your way through some devastating hurt that has been inflicted upon you by some family member. It does not matter. These biblical principles apply across all those spectrums, and we want to get started today. Listen, today is real simple. I want you to type in the chat, write it off. That's what we've come to talk about today. The topic is write it off. I want to tell you that this is a very practical discussion on today, and we want to try to take our time. You're going to find me doing just a little bit more reading. I have several resources here, and we'll be too glad to share those with you. As we talked about in the very beginning that there are resources that you need to help you as you deal with church hurt. We try to remind you as you deal with church hurt that you're not the first person, and unless Jesus comes back today, you won't be the last. It is something that comes with the business of trying to do good to other people. And sometimes you can just be minding your own business and trouble and offense finds itself to your door. And so on today, write it off. That's what we want to talk about. I want you to put it in the chat. I want you to write it on an index card. I want you to text it to a friend that's struggling. Listen, I know people who have been so offended until they've almost given up on life. Write it off. That's what we want to talk about on this session on today. And I promise you, if you will at least give me your listening ear, I guarantee you that we'll give you an option that you might not have considered before. And so we have this concept called write it off. I want to talk to you today about one word. Today, the word is forgiveness. 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 Yes, it's a big, big word. But I tell you right now, it's one that is practical. And we're going to give you some steps to take today to talk about this term forgiveness. Now, listen, I want to tell you, when you look at the term forgiveness, I want to give you a practical definition for it. Listen to this. Forgiveness is the principal decision to give up your justified right for revenge. Let me stop right there. If I ended this session right there, it would be enough to talk to somebody. We're not saying that in this process that you do not have a right to feel like you feel. I want to be clear about that. But forgiveness is the principal decision. To forgive someone, you have to make a decision. And the decision is to give up your justified right for revenge. Listen to this. It also requires the forgiver to recognize that the offender is human like myself. Oh my goodness. I want to talk to somebody today. Following the hurt and pain and atrocities, forgiveness can potentially bring resolution and freedom. We're going to give you some practical examples today. It is a practical way of preventing the pain, listen to this, of the past from defining the path of the future. Yes, that's what I came to tell somebody. Listen, that when you decide, you have to make a mental decision to forgive. And when you do that, listen, I'm already getting happy. I'm going to tell you why just a little bit. But I want you to hear me when I say, when you forgive, it is a practical way of preventing the pain of the past from defining the path of your future. Listen, there are so many people in this world, and maybe you know someone today. I'm going to ask you to put your comments in the chat. I've got a long ways to go today, so I might not be able to engage the chat, but I'll tell you what we will do. We'll circle back around and acknowledge all of our viewers. But on today, I've got a final destination that I've got to get to, because somebody is at the brink of a breakthrough, because today is the day that you're going to make the decision to forgive someone. And what you will be acknowledging is that your past will not become a defining factor for your future. Listen, yesterday is gone. Tomorrow may never be mine. And all I have is right now. And I choose to forgive. Let's get started. Once again, I'm here today to talk about write it off. Absolutely. When you talk about forgiveness, there are two categories that I want to lift up for your consideration today. Number one, it's a unilateral forgiveness. That's right. It's just a big word of saying that this type of forgiveness requires nothing in return. Oh my goodness. It is an act of generosity on the part of the victim or victims. There can be many different motives. For example, it may stem from compassion for the offender, the wish to free oneself from pain, that you made a decision that I've been in pain around this long enough, and I choose to make a unilateral decision for forgiveness. And it can also simply means a moving forward, that you made a decision today that I'm moving forward. And in that decision, it is called a unilateral forgiveness. Then there is also this bilateral forgiveness. Yes, I want to just put my weight on it just for a moment and let you understand that when you say you have bilateral forgiveness, it's just another way of saying this involves an exchange. Listen to this. It is a contractual relationship between people or groups dependent on apology and remorse. It is often tied up with justice, and it involves the paying of a social debt. And we see this all the time in criminal cases. There's this connection, this contract between someone trying to forgive and then someone else having to give some type of apology. And your forgiveness, listen to this, is contingent. That is, it is solely based on the person's apology or the person looking like they are genuinely sorry. That means they have remorse. How many times have we seen TV shows where the assailant stands with no expression? They've taken something very valuable in the essence of someone's loved one, and the offender is sitting there just motionless and emotionless. And the family and the loved one is waiting for that apology. I remember watching this death row show, and this family had been waiting and waiting for years to get an apology. And they were told that this offender was going to be executed in the upcoming days. And so they tried to prepare themselves for the execution. My friends, on the man's deathbed, everybody gathered to see, would he offer an apology? And to their dismay, he left this world with nothing. And so if you're trying to base your forgiveness bilaterally on some contractual basis from someone else, it's a very risky business. And so what I wanted to talk about is this book. I told you one of the resources that has been very instrumental in this process is a book by Bishop T.D. Jakes called Let It Go. Forgive so you can be forgiven. It's called Let It Go. Forgive so you can be forgiven by Bishop T.D. Jakes. Now, I want to look just for a moment on some concepts here, because I want you to benefit from, listen to this statement. It says, offenses are a part of life. Who is it that can say that you've been living in this world and you haven't had any offense from anybody? I want to suggest to you today that if you live in this world, you're going to have offense that someone, somewhere, somehow is going to offend you. Conflict can occur between people, listen to this, who truly love one another, as well as those who barely know one another. Conflict does not discriminate. Listen, the offense transpires between couples who have been married for over 50 years. I've seen couples have conflict, and then I've seen them conflict between strangers waiting at a bus stop who don't even know each other. Oh my goodness, I come to tell you today that conflict is common in this place that we call life. By now, we are sure that life guarantees our attendance, all of us, in this class called forgiveness. Whether we signed up for it or not, the course is ours to graduate from. Now, when you say forgiveness, I want you to think about this just for a moment. When you have a cancer and a person is wanting to take radiation, listen to this concept. And I want you to try to see if you can find yourself in this concept. While medication, chemotherapy, and radiation can often obliterate the cancer from a person's body, sometimes it is necessary, my friends, to do invasive surgery. That means surgery on the inside and remove the malignant growth before proceeding with long-term treatment. In other words, have you ever known someone to be diagnosed with cancer and they have to do surgery, Lord have mercy, before they do the treatment? I came today to talk to somebody to tell you that forgiveness often works the same way. Before we can proceed with the healing and moving forward, we must separate ourselves from the power of preoccupation of unforgiveness. We must let go. Listen to this, of demanding that the wrong be righted. I'm talking good to somebody because somebody says, until they righten what they have done to me, I will not forgive them. And I stopped by to tell you that when you do that, you actually put on hold the ability to heal. When somebody says until the loss is restored, or until, this is one that I hear too often, until the offender be punished in a way that I deem appropriate. In other words, I'm so glad that the good Lord ultimately has the last say so, because sometimes I've seen people wish some bad things on people who have offended them. And I stopped by to tell you today that if you walk in forgiveness, the first step is you have to learn to let it go. Yes, and you got to be willing to write it off. Listen, I came by to tell you that the reality is that life really is not fair. I don't know who sold that ticket to us to tell us that life is fair, but I came to tell you sometimes, you ready for this? The wicked prosper in this life, and the righteous suffer injustice. Oh, you ought to read Psalm 73. It talks about Asper and his struggle with people who don't deserve to be here, and it looked like they're faring better than the ones who are living an upright life. I don't know who I'm talking to today, but I came to tell you that forgiveness, it starts with the decision to let it go. Yes, we'd like to give most people the benefit of the doubt and assume that they hold these shared values that we do. But I came by to tell somebody today that unfortunately, as sad as it is to say, this assumption and really and truly a false expectation. What do you mean, Williams, that sometimes our expectations of people are unrealistic? We're going to talk about that in just a second. Basically, injustice becomes salt, listen to this, in the wound we've suffered. Instead of our assailants becoming captured and punished for stabbing us in the back, they get freedom. Oh, Lord have mercy. I'm talking good. And sometimes refusal to take responsibility for what they have done. My friend, I know I'm talking good to somebody today, but I came by to tell you that in this life, you got to learn to let it go. And you must understand this. This is a concept that I wanted to share. That the sense of decency is what we expect out of everyone. But I must tell you, you do need to understand that there are some people who are not decent, who are not integral, and who have no sense of a conscience. Yes, you surely must realize that there are those among us every day who can swindle you out of your savings. They can distort truth. There are masterminds. I just taught a seminar just recently about the perception of a silver tongue. That there are those who people capitalize on these slick tongues. They can distort the truth so bad. Or they can write a check on a closed account. Am I talking good to anybody today? Or somebody that has made a promise to make a payment to you and they don't feel their obligation. And quite frankly, are you ready for this? They didn't have any intention of paying the debt back. And you, with your kind self, find yourself a victim of a person with a moral compass that needs to be recalibrated. Oh my goodness, I'm talking good on a Saturday today because somebody needs to understand that you are not alone and that you're not in this by yourself. You're not the first person that someone has taken advantage of your kindness. Most of us feel shocked and betrayed by those persons with these bad characteristics. And the truth of the matter is, it's really disheartening when you take a step back and you look at how disgusting it is to find that you have trusted someone on face value that they should be trusted, and they turn around and betray your trust. It seems to bear this sense of unfairness. But again, forgiveness is a choice. I want you to hear me good, that today you have to learn to make a conscious choice to write it off. Can I tell you, one of the best therapists for those who think their lives are scattered into splinters, I come today to tell you, I got good news for you, that God's grace and his mercy will give you what is necessary to write it off. When we are wrong, I know what I'm talking about, and feel victimized, we have a tendency to nurse our perspective. I want to talk good to somebody today because somebody said, I have a right to feel like this. I'm not going to argue with that at all. But what I will ask you is, how long will you nurse that perspective? How long will you give life to that perspective, not seeing any others but our own, and become so, listen to this, preoccupied with our side of the story that we seldom have any fair consideration for the whole picture. But I came to tell you today, we feel justified to hate and to harbor the lust for revenge. My friend, it's that cancer that has to be cut out before you can apply the chemotherapy. Ooh, I'm talking good to somebody today. God wants to help set you free. And he also wants to give you a place of healing and wholeness. And I came by to tell you today that no matter who it is and what it is, you have to learn to write it off and make a conscious decision that to forgive a broken date or broken commitment or an embarrassing remark made at some dinner table, or others wrestle with infidelity and improprieties. Listen, the list goes on and on and on. And still others struggle to forgive murder and rape. There's a long list, my friend. This broadcast doesn't make way to give platform for all those. All forgiveness, is what I want to say, isn't created equal, but all provokes some similar questions. I want to talk to somebody today about a couple of questions that may be on your mind. This is Real Talk, and we're going to have a conversation about forgiveness and how to write it off. Somebody says, what were they thinking about? Oh, I come to tell you today. Somebody else may ask, why didn't she just tell me the truth? That's all she had to do. Or somebody else may ask, how could he have overspent my credit card like that? Somebody else might say, I could understand it if there was this way or that way. In reality, most people who hurt us weren't really thinking about our needs at all. Because what we find is that usually the offender is broken themselves, and we become collateral damage to their own insecurities. That's why you have to learn to write it off. Now, I want to tell you, when I think about this notion of writing it off, doing real good on my time, I encourage you to take back the power in your life. That's what I came today, in no uncertain terms, to say to you, that as long as you allow that position about your personal hurts, and many of them you are rightfully justified for, but you have to write it off so that you can live again. And you don't become a prisoner of your own past. My friend, you're giving power to the offender all over again. Now, we're going to talk about it just a second. I'm trying to get to a few more concepts before we make this live for you. Listen, I encourage you once again to take back the power in your life, because sometimes the offenders are walking around, and when they come in your presence, they can see your demeanor change. They can see you walking the other way. They can see you dropping your head. And I came by today to tell you to take back the power. It's yours. And you should take back the power in your life. Even if the person cannot or will not right the wrong they have done unto you. The power is yours. I came by to tell you. I want you to write this down. Here's a tool to put in your toolbox. You cannot drive forward with your eyes affixed in the rearview mirror. Think about it now for a second. There's no way that anybody knows anything about driving. If you're going to drive, you got to look forward as what's coming at you, and you cannot have your eyes stuck in the rearview mirror. I didn't say you didn't have to glance in it every now and then to remind yourself of where you come from and what's back there. But my friends, I want to give somebody a tool today and say to you that you cannot drive forward with your eyes affixed to the rearview mirror. I want to challenge somebody today to take your eyes off your past and put your eyes on your future, because your best days, I feel good already. Somebody needs to hear me good when I prophesy over your life that your best days are ahead of you. And what's to come is better than what's been. Listen, listen, listen. Take your eyes off your rearview mirror and put them looking ahead. Yes, it's okay to glance every now and then. But what I want you to know is whatever is back there, whatever is causing you to keep looking in that rearview mirror, I want you to make a decision. It's time for me to write it off. Now, here's 5 things I want you to consider. I'm doing good on my time. 5 things to consider that will help you find the ability to release the past and move on. Would you just help me one more time? Write in the chat, write it off. This is what the takeaway from today is all about. Write it off. Listen, the enemy, your naysayers, your haters, none of them want you to come to a place where you finally discover your power is in writing it off. Yes, I want to talk to you today. Number 1, writing it off doesn't mean that you didn't gain anything from the experience. Can I say it again? Number 1, writing it off doesn't mean that you didn't gain anything from the experience. Often you have gained invaluable wisdom. Maya Angelou said, when a person show you who they are, believe them the first time. They don't have to keep coming to you 6 and 7 and 8 times. So now you've gained some valuable information about the individual. And oh, by the way, we've done this lesson already. You can certainly go back and look at it. But when we talk about trust, so the person says, listen, it's over, it's done with, trust me again. And I say, you know what, my friend, it don't work like that. The truth of the matter is trust is not an emotion, it's a behavior. And what trust says is, have you done enough to convince me that you're worthy of my trust? That's an academic term called trustworthiness, by the way. And when you look at this, somebody today, I want to help you so that they don't run mind games on you. You've gained some invaluable information. And one thing is that the person cannot be trusted. And the only way to replace that distrust is for the person to give you constant data points of trustworthiness. If they say it, they do it. If they speak it, they walk it. Listen, it's just as simple as that. And if a person is struggling with mistrust and they continue to give more data points of mistrust, then you've gained some valuable information. Number 1, writing it off doesn't mean you didn't gain anything from the experience. Number two, writing it off doesn't suggest that you weren't right about the abusive circumstances that led to the unforgiveness. I want to talk good to somebody today, because somebody says, well, if I write it off, does it mean that I wasn't right? No, you can be solely right. Yes, the person was abusive. Yes, the person misabused your trust. But here's the thing. Because you write it off doesn't mean that you were not right in what you felt. It simply means you have too much ahead of you to expend any more energy looking back. I want to say that one more time, because somebody going to get set free today. You going to get tired of being sick and tired of being tired of looking back. And every time you look back, it seems like it zaps your energy. But I want to tell you to write it off, even though you were right in what you experienced, because you cannot afford to expend any more energy looking back, because you have too much ahead of you to run the risk of not gaining your reward. Listen, number three, writing it off doesn't mean that you are weak. It's a mind game for somebody. It takes a strong and a great deal of strength, listen to this, and hope and faith to garner the courage to move beyond the breach. It's easy to camp out. It's easy to take up residence. Lord have mercy, that'll preach right there. It's easy to say this gonna be my new resident. I feel like this, I'm justified by this, but it takes a whole lot of strength. It takes a whole lot of hope, and it takes an abundance of faith to gather the courage to declare, it happened, I got hurt by it, but I'm moving forward. My friend, I want to empower you to write it off. This session is designed specifically for you if you're ready to write it off. And then number four, writing it off doesn't mean that you won't be compensated by some other opportunity ahead of you. I hope you're taking notes on these 5 challenges around writing it off. Listen to this. I got to read it to you again. Number 4 says writing it off doesn't mean that you won't be compensated by some other opportunity ahead of you. You say, Williams, what does that mean? Well, many times I really believe that the God we serve finds ways to compensate us with divine favor to balance our lives out beyond what has been done to us by others. Come here, Joseph, in the Bible, Genesis 50, verse 19 and 20. Here's a biblical character, one of many, I tell you, that he ultimately declares that his brothers had done him so dirty. Oh, you want to talk about some hurt and offense? They told the father that he had been killed. They stripped him and throwed him in a pit, sold him to some men. This man, all the time, was being placed in a place so God could compensate him for what he had been through. I don't know who I'm talking to this Saturday morning, but you need to understand that it happened. They hurt you. It was painful. And they were gambling that you would not get up from there. But I want to talk to you today to tell you that God is ready to compensate you. But you got to make a mind and a decision to write it off. And when you write it off, I'm trying not to get happy on my broadcast this Saturday, but when you write it off, you will look and the favor of God will overtake you. Don't you worry. You talking to a living example. I've been there. Listen, I want to stay on track. Write it off. 5 concepts you need to understand when you're trying to write it off. Number 4, I want to read it to you again. When you write it off, it doesn't mean that you won't be compensated by some other opportunity ahead of you by the God you serve. And then finally, Lord have mercy, number 5. I know my time is almost up, but number 5 says writing it off helps you to gain a glimpse into what God does for us with our own sin. My friend, what a wonderful example around the gospel story. Can I tell you? Every so often, I remind myself, yes, as a pastor, yes, as an evangelist, yes, as a missionary, but then sometimes as just a disciple, I remind myself of the gospel story, that we had a debt we could not pay. God received payment from an outside source. Hallelujah. And it was his son, Jesus Christ, and wrote it off, even though we ourselves never made any recompense or any type of apology for our transgressions. Listen, while we were yet sinners, I love the old preachers, they would say, and my account was in the negative. A God above paid my debt, and I was too mean to live and unfit to die. Isn't that a gospel story for somebody today? And yet, we're compelled to write it off. Oh, I didn't say act like it didn't happen. But what I did say was, it doesn't define my future. And you, my friend, must take back the power in your life. Now, I want to say to you, I'm about out of time. Of course, you want to respond with grace to the repentance, but the question begs an answer. What do you do when persons who cause you the most pain have not and will not admit or acknowledge or even repent for their part in your pain? I want to ask that question again on a Saturday morning. Can you just help me process this question? What do you do when persons who have caused you the most pain have not, and in many cases will not, admit or acknowledge or even repent, for that matter, for their part in your pain? What do you do? The simple answer is you take back the power of your life and you write it off. Yes, when you write it off, it's demanding that they make things right and have the quality of character. Apologize also leaves them controlling the thermostat in the room you have to live in. Can I say that one more time? Yes, I will. When you demand that they apologize, when you demand that they wrong the right that they have done, in essence, what you have done is you've allowed them to control the thermostat in the room that you have to live in. My friend, I want to tell you to take back the thermostat and write it off. When you write it off, you're saying to the enemy and your adversaries, the naysayers and your foes, that it happened. I got hurt by it. Listen, I got my war scars by it, but I'm controlling the thermometer and I'm writing it off, and you guys to go. Yes, nowhere is there a more classic story of an adept, of an unapologetic individual than at the cross. Let me tell you, when I think about the cross, where the ones responsible, listen, for the crucifixion of Christ didn't even apologize. And yet, the first thing Christ did with the unrepentant was to ask the Father to forgive them. It's a wonderful gospel story of the very ones who inflicted the pain, would not, refused to apologize. And yet the victim, the first thing he does is ask the Father, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. How could he do this? You may ask, with blood running down his face. Listen, if I was in a church, I'd be running around the church right now because I'm so happy of the price that Christ decided to pay. Listen to me. With blood running down his face, streaming down his hands, running down his side, running down his feet. How could he do that while the guilty further exaggerates the crisis by gambling for his garments while he bled? Let me tell you right now, it is the height of insult. And yet, he does this, says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Because he was looking at his future. Woo, I'm trying my best not to get happy on a Saturday morning. Christ saw the future, and he was not willing to let those past insults hamper or determine his future. And can I tell you, ours too. I'm so glad that he didn't want to face a need to resurrect himself. Listen to this. With any trace of bitterness draining his power. No, he asked the Father to forgive him because he says, in just a few days, Father, there's another phase in my life that must come to pass, that I'll rise with all power in both death, hell, and the grave. I'm happy now, and I want to try to close. Listen, somebody today needs to hear me that your future is brighter than your past. And you, my friend, have to learn to control the thermostat in the room that you choose to live in. I don't know who I'm talking to today, but I want to tell you quickly as I try to wrap this up that there are a couple of benefits in trying to write it off. When you start talking about writing it off, number one, forgiveness can bring new insight. I told you that already. The reality is, if you let go and let God, he can show you that there are new insights just around the corner if you're willing to write it off. Number two, forgiveness can help transform attitudes. Can I tell you right now, there's nothing any sweeter than walking into a room where the offender was. I've watched court TV shows and I've seen the victim go boldly to the witness stand, point the assailant out and say, there he is right there. He's the one that inflicted the pain. And in the assailant's face, say to him, I give you no power because I forgive you today. Woo! let me help somebody today. Listen, it's an humbling place. It'll help take your attitude to new altitudes. Yes. And then number 3, forgiveness can help repair broken relationships. Sometimes it all starts with forgiveness. It is the benchmark in keeping good relationships together. And finally, forgiveness can help break the cycle of violence. I close today by telling you about a man. This man found himself in a hole. Actually speaking, it was a manhole that the street workers were working on, and they left the lid off. And as fate would have it, this man, it was raining, he could not have seen, and found himself in the manhole. He started yelling, help, because he was hurting. Help, help, help. Oh, it goes on and on and on. And after a while, a doctor comes by. Here's the man yelling, help. He takes his prescription pad out and he writes a prescription for the man and he tosses it down in the manhole. After a while, here comes a lawyer. The lawyer said, you need a lawyer to help sue somebody from leaving this lid open. He writes out his business card and puts his name on the back and throws the business card down in the manhole. Here comes the preacher. The preacher looks down there. Here's the man yelling, oh, I'm closing now. If I was in the church, I'd tell somebody to tell God, thank you. Listen, the man who is the preacher takes his pad out and writes out a prayer and throws it in the hole. Tells the man, here's a prayer you can pray while you're down there. And then out of nowhere, here comes one of his friends. And the friend hears him. He 2 or 3 hops and he's down there in the manhole with the man who fell into the manhole. The man had fallen and said, friend, what have you done? You can't help me because now you down here with me. The friend said real easy, brother, take it easy because I've been here before and I know the way out. Oh, I come to talk to somebody today that I've been down in the manhole and I know the way out. You're talking to a living witness. I've been waiting all morning long to tell you that I've been there. I've been hurt. I've got the war scars, but I found a way out of the manhole. And I'm here today to help talk to somebody. You have to make a conscious decision to write it off. I don't know who I'm talking to today, but your mind and your naysayers have convinced you that there is no way out, that this is what you have to contend with the rest of your days. But I came by on assignment from God above to remind you that I've been in the manhole. I've been down there, and I also know the way back out. Oh, stay tuned. I'll talk with you more about that on the next broadcast. And in my closing, I want to tell you next week about a true story. When I think about forgiveness, there's a pastor. He shared this publicly, and I want to bless somebody's soul on a wonderful way out. He gives the example on how to get out of the manhole. That's all I have for you today. I pray God's blessings on you. Listen, I absolutely have enjoyed it. Listen, I hope and pray that you've gotten something out of today's broadcast. Do me a kind favor. Listen, if you know someone who's struggling, if you know someone who is almost giving up on life because the pain was so deep, I want you to do me a kind favor. Share this broadcast with somebody today. Get on the phone, get on your laptops, get wherever way you can. and bless somebody today to let them know all they have to do is to write it off. I want to pray with you today, but I also want to ask you to do something for me. I want to ask you to go through that process. And I want to ask you, think about it. But remember, like the car, make your mind up that you're not going to continue to asphyxiate, that is, to permanently have your eyes on the rearview mirror. My friend, can I offer God's affirmations to you today? That what is to come in your life is better than those things that you have encountered. And I want to also tell you that God compensates us in ways that our human minds cannot conceive. My time is up today, but I want to tell you that the end of my testimony is this, that I was there. I got the war scars. The pain was there. But can I tell you something? Those were all indicators pushing me to where I am today. And I can honestly say that my past prepared me for my future. I'm able to tell you that I can help you get out of the manhole because I've been there. But when I was in the manhole, it seemed like there was no other options until God sent a friend down in the manhole and said, follow me, because I done been here before. I know the way back up out of this manhole. I hope somebody today will make your mind up that the manhole is not your final destination, but that God can use the manhole experience and let you become an instrument of avocation for a God who can take what seemingly meant to be evil and work it for your good. I got one more scripture, Romans 8:28. I want you to read that for your devotion. Romans 8:28. Listen, I've got it memorized because it was part of that contingency on my way up out of my manhole. And we know that all things work together for the good of them who love God and who are the called according to his purpose. Let me tell you right now, it might not feel good to you, but it's certainly good for you. That's all I have for you. Can I pray for you today? God bless this session on today, Father. Look down on those who are still even in the valley, down in the manhole. Give them the wisdom and encouragement to know that this too shall pass, that trouble don't last always, and that in the morning, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. We give you praise in advance, and we will not wait till the battle is over, but we'll thank you in advance. It is in Jesus' powerful, mighty, magnanimous name we pray. And all God's people say, I love you. Until next Saturday, listen, you will definitely want to tune in. We're going to talk about how to get out of the manhole. There it is. Until next time, I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. God bless you.